What is up, everyone? Welcome back to our CubeCon coverage. We're here Friday, which is day one of the main event. We're in our third draft. We've had two excellent drafts. We've seen two trophy winners so far. I'm Justin Parnell. You guys saw me yesterday. I am joined with an expert cuber today.
Well, thank you.
Dan Schneider. What is up, my friend?
Wonderful day of cubing so far.
Love it.
Got two drafts in. A little bit sad to be sitting this one out. You know, there's so many great cubes in the room, but so excited to be talking about and watching and covering the Old Border Foil Cube. It is definitely a fan favorite in the room. It is one of the most beautiful things to look at today. The space. It's great to be here doing coverage for this cube.
I feel confident in saying it is the most beautiful cube. It might be the most beautiful cube I've ever seen.
I mean, how dare you?
Sure.
But yes, it is. I mean, it depends on sort of your level of nostalgia for it, right? For me, that cube is right when I started playing Magic. A lot of cards in sort of the Odyssey Onslaught era, which is when I started Judgment into Onslaught. Like that's when I learned how to draft and all of these things. So all of these cards just hit right at home for me. In a way that feels really special. So all of those cards feel fantastic.
I love it. I started in 99.
Yep.
So this is like right when I was hitting my groove into Magic, and chef's kiss. Love to see it. I've not had a chance to draft it, but I will.
Yeah.
If there's one cube that I will, no matter what, draft this weekend, it's going to be the Old War Foil Cube.
And that's how I felt coming in as well. It's just like I just looked at the card. I'm like, well, if any of these four cards are in a pack, first pack, good, done. Yeah. That's it. Like I knew all the cards I wanted to see.
And the power level's there, and they're just also great. You don't want to hold them in your hands.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. No, I remember Caleb Durward was in my pool, and in between pack 1 and pack 2, he picked up his pack and he's like, "I'm not reviewing this. I'm just looking at the cards."
Yeah.
He's like, "This is just great to look at."
I love to see it. Now we're gonna be able to talk about this cube for the next 3 to 4 hours.
Sure.
So before we get to that, I want to talk to you about your cubes because you are you've been spreading your influence out with a number of cube juices on Cube Cobra. I looked at your profile. You have 13 cubes listed.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I only have 2 of those in paper. I think I know which one I would make next in paper if I had to choose.
So yeah, you got a plan to go down the line.
I mean, I don't have that many access to lands. Like,
sure,
that's the key. It's like every time you decide you want to start a new cube, it's like, what is my land? Like, how many lands do I have left in the binder? Like, well, that's gonna. So yeah, I have 2 cubes that I own in paper, and I love designing cubes just as thought exercises and weird things that pop in mind.
So much fun.
So yeah, I think
you brought one today.
I brought one. One of my cubes is one of the featured cubes for CubeCon, which is the Devoid cube.
Right.
This is a cube that started in 2014. Someone sort of posed a thought experiment, like when wastes were spoiled, like could you make an entirely colorless cube? And I saw their effort. I'm like, I bet you could.
I bet I can.
I bet you can.
Thought.
So I quickly got the cards together, and it just became one of the weirdest, most fun environments to build for. It makes spoiler season super weird. Like I could not be more excited about the Brothers War.
Whoa, big upgrades coming.
Big upgrades coming for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fantastic, very weird environment. For people who aren't familiar with it, every card in the cube, except for one because of rules technicalities, is colorless. Slip Drowsy Monstrosity, technically colored until it's in play.
That's true.
That's true. That's how the rules work.
Yep.
The only basic land you can add to your cube at the end of the draft freely is wastes. But beyond that, it actually kind of plays like normal Magic, which is like the weird thing about it. It's like,
because you look at it and you're like, what is going on here?
You have aggro archetypes, you have mid-range archetypes, you have big mana ramp. If you're the player who's always forcing Storm in a pod, I have KCI combo in there for you.
Love it.
So it's a phenomenal cube. On the literal opposite end of the spectrum, the other cube that I have in paper is I call it my Modern Evergreen Peasant Plus cube. So all cards are modern legal. All the cards are uncommon or lower rarity, except for the lands, which can be rare.
Yes.
And the cards contain no non-evergreen keywords.
Oh, nice.
So
I actually really love that for drafters because it makes you be able to get in and you're not overwhelmed with mental load to read everything.
Exactly what it was. I had a bunch of coworkers who were starting to play Magic for the first time.
So good.
We did like a core set booster draft. I had a lot of fun. And I'm like, oh, I should cube with them. And then I looked at the Devoid cube and went, That's probably not the best plan.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, like what is the population of the players that I could have in this group? You know, all relatively new. They know what trample is. They know what flying is. Like they can read the cards and know what they do. But like, you know, having to go back and like, what's shadow? Like there's so many weird things that you could put in, even at the peasant power level. That was just like only modern legal, so that there's not too many other weird things. And then just take out all the other keywords. So cards do what they say they're going to do. It has a really tremendous overlap with a normal kind
love that.
You know, a non-restricted peasant environment. It has a lot of kind of traditional overlap.
In the first round today, we covered a Peasant Plus cube, and honestly, like, I don't want to say it's strictly better than Peasant Cube without the rare lands, but if I was drafting it, I think I would say that.
Yeah, so I, in 2020, I got laid off from my job, and I had literally nothing to do. I was like applying to jobs, so I couldn't get anything to. The first thing, one of the things I did is like, I have to have a thing. Like I have to do something, otherwise I'm going to go crazy. And so I went on Reddit and I opened up a thread on Reddit. And I'm like, send me your cube. However many cube, like you want feedback on your cube, you want someone to look through this, send me a link. I'll go through it. The first time I posted it, I got 41 submissions.
Oh, wow.
I went through every single cube for anything that was like, you know, there were a lot of people who are like, hey, look at my legacy cube. And it's like, you have a legacy cube.
Congratulations. Like, we've seen 100 of these.
Yeah, like maybe cut Soul Ring. Like that seems a little bit too strong, but like otherwise, like let's figure it out. But for people who are like brand new cubes or whatever, like I did like write-ups on all sorts of cubes and sort of like written feedback. I was still unemployed when I finished that, so I ran it back. I got another 80 submissions.
80 submissions?
80 submissions. But one of them was a peasant cube with full nice mana. So it was, it was a pauper cube, but fetches, shocks, ABR duels, just like I want this format to have the best mana possible.
And that changes the speed of that format dramatically.
Amazingly. But the moment that happened was the moment I decided to take my Peasant Cube to Peasant Plus. I'm like, this is so much better.
Love it. I absolutely love it.
Amazing inspiration from that. And like I'm slowly now upgrading the quality of the mana in my own one.
There's so many. I mean, we have 26 cubes here.
Yeah.
CubeCon featured cubes. There's
there's
more than that are not featured that people have, and we're getting ready to cover again what is maybe your favorite or my favorite cube. I got a chance to talk with the designer Jeff Green. He is right there with us. He started playing in '99. His first set was Mercadian Mass, which is like right when I was getting into Magic. I started playing 6th edition, which was between Urza's Legacy and Urza's Destiny. Really weird time for that to come out. So he also put this cube together during the pandemic.
Oh wow!
Which is interesting because it's we're 20 years past when these cards started coming out. But it's really cool because while he was designing this cube, he got new cards for the cube.
Yes,
that's crazy, and of course not expecting to be able to do that.
No, it's super interesting, like to look at what cards he chose to include and what cards he chose not to include with the new borders. And he had a really clear vision for it. Really trying to band it to the same
tight 360.
Yeah, it's really trying to band it to the same power level though, right? Because there's so many great cards that have gotten this sort of like rare the retro foiling process, and like I love that. So excited about Dominaria United. So excited about the Brothers War.
You're gonna have more options soon for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be really fantastic to see. I wonder if you might even consider putting in something like a Lodestone Golem to like create more of a stacks environment, which actually is somewhat supported in Old Border, right? If you can, well, you might not have foil Sphere of Resistance, but there are things that could really go in there if there are things that sort of hit him for his own nostalgia around that, which would be exciting.
So there you go, those cards in Modern Horizons 2 with the Old Border. There's Judge Foil. I mean, and it's the power level. I'm glad you brought that up because it's not these huge sledgehammer cards, but it's like Thraben Inspector, Flicker Wisp. There's like Abrupt Decay, Beast Within, Animate Dead, which is a new Judge Foil that just came out. So it's stuff that's really, I don't want to say medium, but it's really power level appropriate for the cards of the time, and they totally fit. And I love it. I think the design of this cube, in addition to the aesthetic being S tier, is incredible because a ton of love was just put into that. Now there are some deviations from a standard cube.
Sure.
So obviously we have dual lands in here.
Yep.
Which fits with the rest of the cube, not in foil yet. Jeff, we talked about this earlier. Don't want to get into how those would be foil.
We'll get ready for Magic 40. Magic Anniversary 40. We'll have the the big anniversary box, but they'll foil it for us this time.
Right. So
keep that same art.
Yeah. So we have 2 sets of duels.
Yes.
There's 1 card in the cube, which after he told me what it was, I said, you have to have this in the cube. That's not foil.
Yes.
Morphling.
So the Morphling is foil. It just is new frame. That's the
true.
difference.
It is a judge foil, but it's not old border.
Yeah,
foil.
because
yes,
you can't.
Thank you.
He just felt like in this environment you can't not have the Morphling. Like it's so iconic.
Feels good. Yeah, it's like
it's so
weird
iconic
to
to
not
the time.
be there.
Yes.
You know?
That's one of the most interesting things about the cube is the stuff that's weird that it's not there because it doesn't exist. Like when I first went into this cube, I was looking at it, I'm like, where's Curdate? Like slam dunk pre-modern card,
F&M foil.
Totally F&M
New
foil,
border.
new border, and EMA foil, new border.
Yeah.
It just isn't there. So there's this interesting like push and pull of both. Like there's this very narrow time band of when foils exist, right? It's Urza's Legacy.
Yeah, you have some cards in Urza's Saga because they were judge foil. So you literally have from really like kind of into 1998 to 2003.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. And then you have these handful of stuff that were released later.
Yes.
So you are really looking at, for the most part, 4.5 years of a really specific block of time.
Exactly. And so the power level banding is really important to that block of time. I think one of the things for me that was really interesting, because I actually did a lot of prep for this because like I love this cube and all those things.
Yeah.
There are the number of cards that are pre-modern, particularly in the gold section, is so small.
Yes.
So there are 214 Orzhov cards in Magic right now. 11 of them are pre-modern, and that's not just in that foiling window.
Period.
Period. 11.
And some of them are like Putrid Warrior from Apocalypse. That's not in the cube, by the way.
Yes.
But
yeah, so it's so interesting to see like where there was strength and depth, and where he decided very strategically to pull in some of those new cards to sort of give cards the right amount of power at sort of each of the areas.
And you really had to, because Magic, in a sense, was kind of allergic to enemy-colored stuff.
Yeah.
For a long time. And this is really the time period. Apocalypse, which came out in 2001, was really the time it's like, okay, we'll consider doing enemy-colored cards. So you had a very small amount of those.
It's like the first gold set, right? Like we now see gold sets twice a year.
Yes.
Right? Like,
and they have
different flavors. Like you have Strixhaven is different from, one of the Ravnica sets is different from, an Ikoria or a Streets of New Capenna, where they're doing shards versus wedges and all of those sorts of things. But we're just so habituated to them now, largely because of the influence of Commander, and also just players love them because gold cards are fun and great.
We get 5,000 new cards every year.
But it's just a totally different time in terms of both the power level and quantity of the gold cards that are available.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic.
So, and we have that block of time, 4.5 years. But in that, to me, it's super nostalgic time, because this is like probably the time I fondest remember in my Magic. But you got all the fixes. You have replications of some of those decks that existed.
Absolutely.
You have Psychotog, and all its friends, Factor Fiction, stuff that's still in the graveyard. You have Rebels. Those are present. A lot of goblins, lots of good goblins.
Oh, that's like, if I saw pack one, pick one, Pile Driver, Sharpshooter, or Siege Gang, I'm like, Goblin's done.
Oh, I love the Siege Gang. Gets to hang out with Goblin Guide too.
Yep, Goblin Guide's one of the added things. Mono Red really did need a little bit more
aggression,
help. And it was lovely that card's also a Goblin to sort of help the Goblin theme as well.
Perfectly.
Really wonderful overlap there.
And then, of course, a lot of sprinkling of madness about. And this brings me to my last deviation: two mongrels. Two wild mongrels, which I think anyone that played during that time in 2003, some of you are going to learn to respect Wild Mongrel today. And I know there has not been a lot of that, because it's a card that time has forgotten for the most part. But I can assure you, with what we're going to see today, Wild Mongrels could be very powerful.
It absolutely is. And it's worth remembering that like it's been reprinted a number of times in a number of sets because of its ability to just play so well with Madness, with the Graveyard, with all these other things. So there, if you've drafted Eternal Masters, if you've drafted Ultimate Masters, there are a lot of these sets that have come out where the Wizards has gone back to the well of Wild Mongrel over and over because of all of its abilities to really interact with the game in all these different interesting ways. Yes. So hopefully some players are a little bit more familiar with it. There's going to be some weird stuff in here that people may not remember, which is that Wild Mongrel, when you discard a card, yes, it gets +1/+1, but you also change its color. Yeah. That means that it's going to dodge a terror.
A big time here.
Yeah, in this cube specifically, where like a lot of old black removal used to say non-black, sometimes non-black, non-artifact.
Fear was a big thing.
Huge thing. It's why, and that was one of the things about Wild Mongrel is it was so impossible to kill because it was almost like it had this protection, like when you discard a card, it got protection from black.
Yep.
Because none of the targeted spells could hit it again. It's why Smother was one of the first like $7 uncommons that ever came out.
Exactly.
It's because it's like I don't care if you're black.
I can kill Tog. I can kill Wild Mongrel.
Yep.
Yeah. So there are just so many amazing cards.
So many amazing.
You got to draft this cube.
I
earlier.
did get to draft this cube.
I have not
earlier.
drafted it yet. So tell me about your experience.
My experience was, first off, fantastic. Pack one, pick one. I think I just took something like simple, like a mana elf. Oh no, pack one, pick one, Raphaelos. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna
non-simple mana elf.
I'm gonna do something green.
Yeah.
Raphaelos, and then I think into a Llanowar Elves, and then into a Guy's Cradle. And I'm like, I know the direction I'm going. You know, if you look at the list for the cube, you'll see that green does kind of lack the somewhat interchangeable 6 to 8 mana finishers of like more traditional modern or legacy cubes now. Yeah. You know, the big haymaker in my cube in my draft was Symbiotic Worm.
7 mana 7/7.
8 mana 7/7.
8 mana 7/7. When it dies, it makes 7/1/1s.
Correct.
All right.
That was sort of the big game finisher. You know, no Avenger of Zendikar, none of those sorts of things. Yeah. So was kind of working my way through this sort of green base thing in the first pack, and maybe around pick 6.
Okay, there's a Sylvos. I was checking for
Sylvos is there, but you know, there's no Avenger of Zendikar, there's no Crater Hoof, there's no Rampaging Balos, even Primeval Titan, Terastodon. Like there's so many of these big, somewhat interchangeable, scary green creatures that have become sort of the staple big mana ramp targets. But anyway, was very green. Maybe about 6 pick pack 1 upheaval.
Things have been changing now in this draft.
So
and you're like, I got Cradle and Rufflos and Upheaval. I can float a lot of mana.
Yep.
See where this is going.
I picked up a Palancron at some point. There's a point where I was going to be able to maybe generate infinite mana if I needed to. Yeah. So I had what honestly looked like a pretty typical legacy cube. I think, I kind of feel like I did the old order foil cube wrong because about a third of my cards were new old order foils. So I had, Noble Hierarch. I had a Eternal Witness. For context, Eternal Witness, great Magic card. Most people know that.
Yes. At
this point in time, when most of the cards is cubed around, Regrowth is a restricted card in Vintage.
Absolutely.
Like Regrowth is considered like a little bit too scary to allow out of the box.
Hallowed ground. For
and so
at this time.
Stapling a 2/1 to that for an additional mana, is quite strong. Yavimaya Elder. Still old border Solemn Simulacrum in that list.
Love Solemn. That's my favorite new card that was put in the old border. Hands down, brown artifacts, you can't beat them.
Yeah. So put together kind of a pretty, what I thought looked like a pretty solid blue-green list. I ended up going 1-2 in the pod, so I was able to take down one match, but did lose 2 others. I lost my first round to a player who essentially pulled together the mono black zombie deck. Really nice aggro deck.
Shout out to Onslaught Block.
A Noxious Ghoul. If we can potentially pull Noxious Ghoul up, Noxious Ghoul plus versus X1 Mana Dorks is not the side of the matchup you wanted to be on.
Yeah, the OG Massacre one, basically Noxious Ghoul.
Yeah, except they get to do it every turn.
Yeah,
multiple times a turn if they've got the zombies and the mana for it. So opponent put together a really, really strong aggro deck there. Second round was sort of a blue-green mirror against more of a tempo-oriented, putting some auras on some guys Skyfolk and just kind of jamming in there. And then my last round, I played against someone who is on, what we would have called back in the day America Control, which is now
Lightning Angel.
Not in the cube, and there is a foil. I am a little shocked. I think the mana does support it, but. I sort of got a little bit Blinding Angel locked for people who are.
Whoa, really bringing it back.
I've been actually having a lot of trouble.
Unlocking some trauma from 2002 with Blinding Angel lock.
I've actually had a little bit of trouble with Blinding Angels today in some of my other drafts as well.
This is classic Magic. Only in Q would this happen.
Only in Q. But that's, opponent put together sort of a pretty nice tempo counter burn little Jeskai deck that
Love it.
was able to lock me out of it. So bounced back from there. Did one of our other featured cubes the last round, the Dichotomy cube. Able to take that pot down.
Nice.
So
Okay. Back on track.
Putting myself back in
Yes,
contention.
yes.
I happened to go 0-3 this for the Friday evening draft.
Well, I appreciate you were giving people a chance to catch up to you after taking down the trophy for the last
excellent.
draft.
Yes, very much so. I'm very considerate that way.
So we have a player that we're going to be featuring this round, Ian Braverman.
Okay.
He was actually in the pod that we covered in the first round. We did the Pleasant Plus cube. He actually brought a Peasant cube himself. So we have a Peasant Plus cube, which is with the rare lands, as Dan was saying. And then we also have a Peasant cube. Ian Braverman brought the Peasant cube and is gifting it to CubeCon for us to use for the weekend. So
wonderful.
We're going to find out how much time. I think they're going to be pretty close to be ready to draft. We're going to find out from our producer Michael what we're looking like down on the floor. But I'm ready. I was going to say see this cube in action. I really just want to see the cards, but we can also see it in action.
I guess they'll play it afterwards or something.
Yeah, it's fine.
As long as they fan out their hands very wide, I think we'll find a way to enjoy ourselves.
Yes. So, and I do want to remind the folks at home, it's not just old border cube. This is an old border foil cube. And if you've ever watched coverage before, you know that sometimes coverage and foils do not mix. We've done our best to try to make sure that we're going to be able to see the cards. But I want to apologize in advance if there's sometimes when things hit a certain light and we're not quite able to. We're going to do our best.
Yeah.
Going to do our best. So, all right. You drafted it. You had here, I'll give you the list. Right. You had some blue-greenness.
Yep.
But if you were going to draft it again, if you had a chance to draft it again, would there be something you'd be targeting to try to take down the trophy?
I think if you can put together a really strong aggro deck in this format, I think that's a really good place to be. I think one of the things about the combo decks, particularly like, the Reanimator deck looks like it should be very, very powerful, right? You could put something really good into
I know
play.
what you're reanimating is the problem.
Yeah, that's the difference, right? Is the Reanimator targets that are coming in this cube, they're not like Gristlebrand, they're not like Grave Titan.
They're Visara the Dreadful and the other pit champions from Onslaught, probably.
Yeah, I mean, Achroma, the original white Achroma, very, very strong. Like, it's going to end the game quickly. But other than the protection, it's not generating value, right? So if you're able to answer it somehow, not necessarily easily, but if you're able to answer it, they're not going to be that ahead on board, right? You're going to have the things.
It takes 6. Maybe I took 12.
Yeah.
It's not an insurmountable thing to come over. It's not, we're not talking Archon of Cruelty. There's none of that. There's no Grave Titans.
Yep. So I love Reanimator. It's one of my favorite archetypes. If I saw Reanimator things, I think I'd be drawn to that. I think Goblins with a little bit of a black splash is really where my heart lies. You get to pick up some of the premium removal, your Terrors, your Terminates, and then if you get very, very lucky and you're very, very good for Christmas, maybe you see a Patriarch's Bidding.
Oh, is that in the cube?
Goblin Bidding fully in the cube.
You get Goblins and Rebels.
Yes,
there's a couple of tribal decks here.
There's some tribal decks. I was talking to the designer as well, and one of the big things for the tribal decks, and one of the reasons why he's so excited about Rebels, is one of the recent old border foils that he added is Mirror Entity.
So that's a big upgrade.
So you can Rebel in your Mirror Entity when you search for your Rebels.
Surprise!
And that gives white good crossover with any of the other tribal things. Because you can tutor up a mirror entity, and it is also part of your zombies or your goblins, whatever. And that's how he tried to really knit together kind of these disparate tribal aggro decks.
Because Rebels, while for those of us that played during that time, very, very powerful, but very parasitic in their design.
Yes.
You can't be playing like 2 Rebels.
I mean, you can, but you probably don't want to.
You probably don't want to. But their power lies in being able to play a number of Rebels and take advantage of their card advantage engine that is built into the cards. But you need to have a critical mass of those to be able to take advantage of that.
Exactly. So I think the white control decks look very strong. You can find the Wrath of God and the Achroma's Vengeance, and you have a lot of just great counter spells. You have counter spell. You have mentally or might have mana leak.
Let's find out. Check it out.
We have a mana leak. We've got like Force Spike, like really high quality counter magic. this is the time in Magic when spells were
Circular
just
Logic, I
so
think,
much
is in
better
here.
than. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
This is Magic when spells were just way better than creatures and threats.
Yeah, I think I was looking through and I was like, I wonder what new blue cards are added. Let me tell you, there's not many. Most of the powerful blue cards are represented of ones that are available in the old border foil. Factor Fiction would be one that I'm looking for.
Okay.
Not just from a pure power level perspective. I just want to cast Factor Fiction as many times as possible.
It's
pretty
allowable gold.
Yeah. I just love casting Factor Fiction. It's been so long.
Yeah.
It's been so long.
All right. Looks like we have a drafter here with a pack.
So, all right. We have Ian Braverman. We are down. Seems now on the players.
Oh, is this... This does not look like the old border foil cube.
Well, that is very interesting because none of these cards are old border or foil, which is quite a interesting thing, which obviously we're not quite sure what's going on. So, after talking about this cube, we might have to be switching gears here. And I'm going to guess, based on the cards that I'm seeing, that this may be the artifact cube.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of artifacts here. So, we might be surprised calling the artifact cube, which is not what we were expecting after talking about the old border foil cube and both preparing for that significantly. So let me put on my unprepared host hat. We're gonna see if we can make a quick adjustment to the correct cube. Give us just a second, folks. We apologize. This is what live convention CubeCon first time Magic the Gathering is all about, is being completely unprepared. We're gonna do our best to show you I want to show you the old border foil cube.
I absolutely would love to do that.
Yeah. That's what we're here. I'm happy to do this. You know what? Maybe we'll show you the artifact cube at a later time.
It is on schedule, I think, to be one of the streamed cubes.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I would love to see that later. But right now, I want to see the old border foil cube. I've been emotionally preparing for this all day.
It looks like some of the players are getting up.
Okay, looks like
playing their picks. So
it looks like we are going to be moving. I think what probably happened is I think people might have just been seated at the wrong table.
Okay.
I think that's probably the most straightforward.
Excellent.
Okay, big change. All right. So, we are going to be watching the old border foil cube. So, we're going to take a very short cube break and kind of get that rearranged, and we'll just talk more.
Yeah, sure.
We've been doing great. Okay, so you started you started playing Magic when?
I started playing Magic at the tail end of Judgment.
Okay.
So like summer before
2002?
high school. I learned to play at summer camp. A friend who taught me how to play gave me a deck. And when I went to high school, I remember very vividly, like day one of high school, I'm like packing my empty backpack because like I don't have books or anything yet. And I look at my Magic deck and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, no, I'm not going to see anyone. I'm not going to play Magic. Like, what am I doing? And I threw it in my backpack anyway. And my school was in New York City. It had 10 floors, so we had escalators crisscrossing the floors. Yeah, it's awesome place. But my homeroom was on the 6th floor, and right as I started to crest the 6th floor escalator, see probably 40 kids all playing board games, Magic cards, whatever, and it was just like instantly already with my people. So I learned to draft first with Onslaught. I remember the first draft I ever won, triple Onslaught, blend of zombies and elves.
So it looks like we're back to the draft. We're on the old border foil cube, and we have a new player that I don't think many people have heard of. His name is Samuel Black.
Huh. I feel like I've heard that name
Maybe
before.
So. We could have seen him yesterday on
his
coverage.
First 3 picks. Let's see if we can get a...
I believe we had a Solemn Simulacrum.
Okay.
A Restoration Angel.
Ooh.
And another Magic card that looked green. So, not 100% sure. Maybe he will flash him back to the camera. We have upgraded. I don't want to say upgraded. We have changed to the old.
Oh, beautiful!
Eternal Witness.
3
now. That is a. I hope this. I hope this was the order where you got Solemn, you got Ewit, and then you put it. Hey, let's get those ETB triggers with that Restoration Angel.
Absolutely.
Now, ironically, or maybe not ironically, Sam has drafted 3 cards that are not printed in
new old
border foils, which the power level, I would say on average slightly higher for creatures.
Yes.
For creatures.
Yeah.
So what would, I mean, obviously we have a Restoration Angel. We're in blue and green. Now, I know that Sam, or excuse me, white and green. I know Sam likes to draft different colors.
Yep.
As many as he can. So we see him pulling this Bayou to the front, and I would say it is likely he's going to draft this Bayou because he loves the land.
I think it'll be interesting to see if he does. If he does, I think that's a decent signal that he potentially wants to consider going into what modern players would probably recognize as Jund, but back in the day we referred to as the rock strategy,
yes.
Which is really generally sort of powerful green creatures, black removal, and just trying to really grind out the opponent. Some of the great cards for that in this cube are Genesis, which it really helps, which is a 5-mana 4/4 that if it is in your graveyard, you can spend 3 mana to bring a creature from your graveyard back to your hand. So here we see Spirit Monger, which if you want to go into the rock, I mean, this was the face
quintessential
of the,
rock
this was
creature.
The face of the rock for a very long time. He also has a Bone Shredder, which is, of course, a great removal spell, getting rid of non-black and possibly non-artifact creatures. But more specifically, it would work quite well with the Restoration Angel. Obviously, Echo is not the thing that you want to do. You don't want to really have to pay the Echo on the blink thing, but getting 2 uses out of a very powerful card is definitely something that you want to be thinking about doing.
Nowadays, we have Ravenous Chupacabras and stuff like that, but Bone Shredder, for its time, I mean, was a cube staple for decades.
Oh, yeah. The fact that it put itself into the graveyard is also a part of the fact that of one of the things that made it a good cube staple, because oftentimes we have the ability to sort of recur things from the graveyard, especially lower cost things, right? You can unearth that.
It, yeah, 3 CMC.
Also, if you don't want to break the bank on your life total, you can reanimate it and, just take 3 to get that extra removal spell. So, yeah, it's definitely a strong one. Let's see. We have Putrid Imp.
Could be putting some stuff in the graveyard.
Ravenous Baloth.
I'm probably going to like that Treetop Village. Oh, well, we have it.
Very easy, fast, ignoble Hierarch. Creating sort of the Jund colors, a great pickup for any, of these green mid-range decks, which is really what green did in this time period, is that you had green was not, could do super ramp, and there are big super ramp cards in this cube, like the Symbiotic Worm that we talked about, like Crush of Worms, a card that I was very disappointed I did not wheel in my own draft. There are some of that, but what green really did was, very cheap threats and very, efficient kind of 3 to 4 drop creatures, which it still does today. But I think a lot of what we think about in cube is, in a traditional vintage cube, is ramping into really, really big threats, or maybe even cheating one out with something like a natural order or something like that.
Compulsion, one of my favorite underplayed cards, and this
easy
is
fetch land.
Easy fetch land. We have a Wooded Foothills that gonna fetch out that Bayou.
Yeah, great mana for Sam Black so far. Looking to pick up maybe a Savannah or a couple of things that might help cast that Restoration Angel, but really, really looking good.
Yeah. So mana fixing is critical, but we also have 2 sets of dual lands.
We do.
So you're gonna have more opportunities. But I would guess that Sam is probably not just looking to play black green. I think he is firmly committed to picking up some more white cards if he can find the mana to be able to cast those easily.
Yeah, and this is for people who are maybe more familiar with the pre-modern format, which many players have started to pick up, which essentially only use kind of like old school, but for this time period, where you can only use the cards that are of the old border with the old art. A lot of the players in that format know that the mana in that format is not great. Certainly by cube standards or even most constructed Magic standards.
For sure.
So it is really imperative to get that fixing, and it might not come, and that would be kind of a pretty common experience of the format. Couple of powerful blue cards here.
Yep. Scrivener, which is interesting. Does Sam have any instants or sorceries?
Not yet, but he has a Restoration Angel, so that's again a bit of a speculative thing.
So we have a Mesmeric Fiend, which is a nice disruptive creature on 2.
Yep.
And Graveborn Muse, which I actually think is generally more powerful than people give it credit for. Kind of a Phyrexian Arena with attached to a 3/3, and of course, able to get a couple more zombies. So being able to pick up handful of cards, that's something that's quite rare in this environment for for creature decks.
Yes. What did Sam? Okay. Looks like he's thinking about Iridescent Angel.
That would be a very interesting pick. Potentially finding a one of the more powerful reanimation targets, but obviously going to need to pull that together because that's not currently on his plan. But could be looking ahead to the rest of the pack.
Yep, very much so. Possibly showing a strong preference for playing blue in the environment, given that he hasn't quite yet picked up any other blue cards or blue fixing even. Gonna take that Iridescent Angel.
I would guess that we're looking to not cast that and bring it back.
Yes, I expect so. Here we saw some absolute format all-stars, Palancron, Psychotog, see a Brushland, so that first piece of white fixing to go with the Restoration Angel.
Yeah, and I would guess that's where we're going to go.
Yep.
Sam Black likes to eat his vegetables when it comes to Cube, and lands are of the highest order. That was probably a pretty easy pick for him. We're going to find out now whether Sam is interested in casting that Iridescent Angel because we have an Underground Sea.
That's true. But no fetch to find it quite yet, just the Wooded Foothills. So Underground Sea, definitely probably something that's interesting, but the rest of the pack, I think, other than the Underground Sea, are some pretty strong green cards. He picked up an Abrupt Decay.
I'm fully on board with that Abrupt Decay. I think that's exactly where I would have gone. Just strong unconditional removal.
Picking up a Badlands over, I think, interestingly, a Befoul, which is a solid removal spell in the format. It's not amazing, but it kind of, it gets the job done.
Here we look like we're looking at 4 cards that are unlikely to make the deck.
Yes.
And that's, with any Cube draft or any draft in general, that's kind of going to happen at the end of the pack. But we're going to see if there can be some sort of wheel that could come back around that could make his deck the last few picks.
As Sam's sort of shuffling things together, we can see that the Wooded Foothills can now also get the Badlands, which is a black source.
That's true.
So that'll help kind of smooth the mana. Picking up an Arrogant Worm.
And obviously, we're going to slam this Ball Lightning, and Sam's going to go into mono red.
Hopefully, hopefully that Ball Lightning lands with someone who loves it.
Wow, this is a pickup. That is a pickup. We have a Ravenous Baloth, which a card that time has forgotten somewhat when damage no longer stacks, but a 4/4 for 4 was above the curve at that time.
Oh, it was one of the phenomenal creatures of the Rock deck. In its standard format and in the extended format at the time, it was part of the Rock deck really loved Oversold Cemetery. That was kind of like one of the niche cards that powered that deck, which I believe is in the Cube.
Oversold Cemetery is in the Cube. Incredible card advantage engine.
And if you were the Rock, one of the things that you always had was it was kind of a toolboxy deck. And so the Ravenous Baloth was there for those aggressive matchups or those burn matchups where you could just be like, sack it, gain 4, upkeep, Oversold Cemetery, play the Baloth, sack it, gain 4. Yeah. And it's just so hard for the aggressive decks to keep up with that.
It's hard. It's actually hard for a lot of decks to keep up with it because they're. So we're choosing between 2 fetch lands here.
Yeah, and most likely.
not to mention the overall dollar amount value of the cards that Sam's holding in his hand. But
Polluted Delta.
not just aggro decks. There are no decks in this cube that aren't winning by reducing your opponent's life total to 0 in a traditional way. Even the control decks and the reanimator decks.
There is one difference to this, which came up in my earlier draft, which is there's a millstone in the format.
Oh,
there's a millstone in the format for the blue-white control decks, the blue-white control mirrors, if it came up. I believe Caleb Durward won at least one game, possibly more.
I think you summoned Oversold Cemetery, which is made its way to the front of the pack along with Living Death. Now, we have, in my opinion, one of the most powerful finishers in this entire cube in Decree of Justice.
Yes, definitely a powerful card.
And I think Sam is going to say, how close am I actually being able to cast these white spells for this Decree of Justice? But
taking the Living Death over Oversold Cemetery, so really hoping to do, something unfair in this cube. Beautiful Deranged Hermit. Wow, this is a great pack.
I think we found the first land Sam's not interested in taking.
So I think one of the cards he just thumbed past was a Life Death. Not something he's interested in, apparently, thinking between these two really great green value creatures in Deranged Hermit and Yaphamaya Elder, both classics of this kind of green rock deck.
Both of which can put themselves into the graveyard for further reanimating later.
Yeah, for coming back via the Living Death. Visara, an interesting sort of powerful finisher for the time.
Lots of blue cards that I think we're probably going to be less interested in. I would say
and the Misty Rainforest.
Misty Rainforest
tucked away here at the end, which
gets slammed down, no question.
Yeah.
We're going to see Sam draft a lot of lands here, as I expected. This is what he likes to do. What we certainly saw yesterday in the Wizards versus Wisconsin 3v3 team draft, Sam drafting a 4-color deck, and I would say we're going to be having 4 colors of cards in our deck today.
Plow Under and Genesis.
Oh, there's Genesis, as you had identified
quickly moving
earlier.
Genesis to the top of the pack. Tradewind Rider as well.
Especially after taking that Deranged Hermit.
Yeah. Genesis coming back in. That's a very nice pickup.
Genesis, the one of the premier grind cards.
Oh, yeah.
To make sure that you can absolutely draw gas from the mid-game forward.
Yeah, every turn.
Indefinitely. And surprisingly, a 4/4 for 5, not the most embarrassing body in this cube.
No, not by a long shot. Definitely a perfectly reasonable finisher, especially with the amount of interaction that Sam has, just kind of through the way and get value out of the creatures that he has, etc.
So there we have Noxious Skull, your bane of existence from prior. I don't believe Sam's going to take this Power Matrix. There's no way. I love Power Matrix, and I played that card when I was in my youth. But I'm going to guess. Oh my!
I seems to be thinking about it.
Am I wrong?
I mean, it is a somewhat weaker pack for him. Other things he might be thinking about would be
Undead Gladiator.
Undead Gladiator. It's so much like he kind of has Undead Gladiator already in.
Are we going with this Grinzo? That's a card. That's a way to get cards into your graveyard.
That's true. He's got.
He's like
2 fetches for red.
I could
3.
Yeah, I can.
2 fetches for red right now.
He can guarantee to get that Badlands out. I feel like
2 fetches for red and a Ignoble Hierarch.
Undead Gladiator just is such a smooth card. But we have Grinzo with a continuing to draft the new old border foil cards.
Yep. There's Patriarch Bidding, as talked about earlier.
Shepherd of Rot, which is an incredible finisher for the zombie deck.
Yes.
Might be an understatement.
That was the first Onslaught draft I ever won, was half zombies, half elves. End of turn, well wisher myself up, but before end of turn drain. Well, let's both lose 4.
That's about that doesn't take long for a concession to be drawn. We have a Gerard's Verdict, which at the time was one of the more powerful discard spells, despite being 2 different colors of mana.
Yep. And an Unmask. Beast Attack, which makes
Masticore.
No.
Oh,
no.
I didn't even get to finish
moment
it.
Too soon.
A moment too soon because Pernicious Deed. Immediately the next card. If you were drafting the Rock, this was the sweeper.
Yes.
This was it.
Yes. I mean, up until not that long ago, this was one of the best Golgari cards in cubes, which shows how far we've come,
We have.
and the difference in sort of Golgari strategies now. But Pernicious Deed just has this absolute ability to force people to make decisions of how aggressively they want to put things on the board, etc.
You get to play a game of chicken.
Yep.
And generally the person with pernicious deeds win because they have the most information.
Yeah, and the grindy deck that is willing to sort of wait it out.
Sam, despite having a ton of lands, is like, you know what? I could use a Grand Coliseum too.
Grand Coliseum does what you need it to do in this kind of a deck, though. Don't want to have any mana issues. Just want to play my powerful cards consistently. Oversoul Cemetery on the wheel.
And the Cree of Justice. These are the two cards that you and I were debating between picking in that last pack before the Living Death. And I think at this point, with the amount of creatures, I think it's Oversoul Cemetery for sure.
Yeah, which we saw him pick up. So that's unsurprising. Yavimaya Elder coming back.
Wow.
An embarrassment of riches for this very traditional but with some spice rock deck. I think if we actually see the red happen and he picks up some powerful red cards, we're gonna have a Jund.
Well, and you know what I was gonna say is there was an Anger floating about.
Yep.
Which is normally, obviously, you need to have a mountain, but Sam does, and if you're able to give your creatures that shouldn't have haste in a deck that traditionally can't do that, that turns things on its head pretty quickly.
The incarnations are definitely a very interesting piece of this cube puzzle.
So Sam put down a probe, and I think he's just making sure that's what he wants. Probably a card that's not going to make the deck. And we have the Tradewind Rider, which Sam was debating between last time. Coming back around, could be rounding in the form with some of these blue splash cards.
Yeah, some really impressive wheels. I think it's looking to me a little bit safe.
Undead Gladiator, back around.
A little bit safe to say I don't think anyone is playing zombies. I think that seeing that late of a Noxious Ghoul, or the drafters who are in the pod may just not be as familiar with what powerful cards look like for this format, and may not realize
that could be true.
Things you're going to see.
Noxious Ghoul, wildly powerful. The fact that we have the cards we were debating, Sam going a different direction and then getting nearly 100% of those cards on the way back.
I do not envy him his deck building. I think he's going to have a lot of crazy things to consider. At this point, he might as well just play a 60-card deck and just play everything.
I was going to say, if Sam can pick up a Yorion, I think he's going to be set.
Could cast it, too.
All right, let's see what we get for 15.
Last pick, Patriarch's Bidding. How dare you?
Which and ultimately, Patriarch's Bidding, one of those cards, especially in a cube, where incredibly powerful, but also could be potentially how the draft forms unplayable for everyone.
Yeah, and definitely a real risk of being a double-edged sword, right? There's at least 3 colors that have primary tribal elements to them. There's goblins, there's rebels, there's zombies. So, the bidding is maybe a sideboard card if you're worried about the risk of someone else,
Unless and you're able to take the most advantage of it, it definitely can be.
Seeing a Wood Elves being considered by Sam help clean up and his mana quite a bit. Wood Elves, also a ramp card that's kind of fallen out of favor in traditional cubes, but finds a forest, puts it into play untapped. As I got to play with a little bit earlier today.
Oh, but can Sam resist Marsh Flats? It's not whether he needs it. It's whether he can emotionally resist it. And I don't know that he can.
Wall of Root's also not a unwelcome addition. Help him kind of slow down and survive those early turns against any crazy, aggressive red decks.
I think the Wood Elves with the rest of the deck that he has going on, especially with bringing stuff back from the graveyard with Restoration Angel, I think it's probably the pick over the Wall of Roots, but I mean, honestly, he's really got a lot. There's nothing that's like a slam dunk first pick in this pack, but honestly, Sam's deck is so powerful already. Getting these like pieces that are going to pull the rest of the mid game together, it's kind of exactly what he needs.
Yeah, and both of these will do that. It's just which flavor he thinks. Wood Elves, I think, which is ultimately what he went it with, is going to help him play those non-green cards, whereas Wall of Roots is really just going to keep him playing powerful green cards. and that may just not be exactly what he's interested in.
We see Bribery, a Cube classic. We also see Phyrexian Rager, which is a
Ooh, Mana Elf versus Gravedigger. Very quick Gravedigger.
Yeah.
Not surprising. He's got a ton of stuff there.
Gravedigger, just a very powerful card, and every limited environment's ever been in, outside of a vintage cube, really, really powerful.
Flame Tongue Kavu and Carplusions.
And
is that both Wild Mongrels in one pack? Oh, what a tragedy.
And I wonder if Sam is going to be saying, is this allowed? It is, Sam. You should know. And we're going to take Flame Tongue Kavu, which was in my personal top 5 creatures of all time for many, many years.
Yep.
We are finally slowly starting to get out of a range of Flame Tongue Kavu quite being powerful enough for the most powerful cubes, but certainly powerful enough here. No question.
Oh, yes. For many, many years. All right, we see a Savannah. We see a Call of the Herd. We see a Flooded Strand.
See a Brainstorm maybe to go with all those fetch lands Sam has.
Yep.
But wants to cast...
Very disciplined.
Wants to cast those few white cards he has without a doubt.
Yep. See another new Old Border foil in the Reclamation stage. We saw a Llanowar Wastes in case he wants to continue to make his mana even better. Apparently considering a Wasteland. Interesting in the 4-color deck. Definitely a powerful
Sam,
card.
what are you wastelanding, my friend? You have them all. Dog, you drafted them.
And yet, it doesn't seem to have stopped him.
Nope, does not. Does not seem to have stopped him.
Ornithopter Paradise seems pretty on point for the multicolor extravaganza.
And Sam's locked in, knows exactly what he wants to draft. We are just getting the connective tissue here.
Yeah.
Really, this looks like, I mean, we might have a 5-color stew a little bit because I believe Sam is going to have a white card, a red card, and a blue card in his deck.
I don't know if he'll end up playing the Iridescent Angel. I think he can certainly cast it.
I'm not talking about the Iridescent Angel. I'm talking about someone he hasn't drafted yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he'll find a way.
He'll find a way.
He'll find a way.
Yeah, Undead War Chief being there. Upheaval.
What do we see here? Sam pulling Upheaval to the front. Now,
I
think it's a hate draft.
I agree. I was going to say, I don't think that's going to make it into his deck, though. Okay. He has a couple of 1-mana accelerants. He's got some stuff going on. Here's a Rampant Growth. That seems like a great pickup. Well, until we saw the Bayou. He does not yet have a Bayou, so that's going to be... Oh, he's the second Bayou.
There's 2.
Yeah, the second Bayou.
Now, Sam going to actively make his Wasteland worse when he takes this Bayou. Not letting anyone else
Maybe the Wasteland was a hate draft also, honestly. It's just a way to...
It could be.
Prevent it. I can't...
It could be a hate draft, but I'm pretty confident he's going to play it in his deck. I think he should go with the Rampant Growth.
Really?
Yeah. His mana's set.
Yeah.
I think there's so few ways to really like get ahead. There's Llanowar Elves. There's Elvish Mystic.
Yep.
Rofelos. There's not many other ramp things that I think that you can do. I think there's a small amount.
Yes.
And that also not just that, but a fixer for all of his colors.
True. All reasonable interpretations. As we see him fanning out his land section, it is deep.
Sure. No blue cards that I believe Sam's going to play yet.
He might consider the Tradewind Rider. That card is
that's true.
Very powerful.
I think he's gonna end up with 5 different colors in his deck. That's what that is my personal opinion watching this draft. Is it going to be true? Yes, it's Sam Black. He's absolutely going to play all 5 of these colors. He hasn't drafted 48 lands to not play 5 colors.
That logic is unassailable.
I mean,
it's simply true.
Yeah.
What a great draft to watch from this side, to see kind of the choices around the see him reviewing all of the cards in the pool to see if there's something draftable. Seems to be upset that something he either wasn't in the pool or someone took it from him. Chatting with one of the other drafters now.
I don't think this is done. Obviously, there's a lot more picks to go. So there are, we're in the middle of pack 3, but I think we probably have 7 or 8 picks left some sort of hold up. We will definitely see the end of this draft. What is Sam looking for here? I know this is a crazy question to ask, but
What's left?
what is? Yeah, maybe it's time for us to look. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
We have a continuation.
There's the millstone. We see a
Deep analysis.
deep analysis.
Deep.
See
We are
yeah,
selecting the
Coast.
blue card to go into our deck. Dan, is what's happening right now.
Which one just made it in?
Stroke of Genius,
Stroke of Genius.
I believe, or maybe he switched it with deep analysis. I think it was Stroke.
Yep. Gets the mana elf back. Why not? I don't know if he'd even played at this point, but
Flicker
He's
Wiz
gonna
would be really bold to be able to cast that one. So one pip is okay. 2 pips is a little much.
yeah,
but
maybe a little much. I think there are so many different ways he could build this deck. He could build it more like conservatively. He could build it 5 color. Like it's.
I would absolutely slam this Collective Restraint. It would not be close.
Yep, he just
That
did.
S tier sideboard card.
Yep.
He's not going to start it. He doesn't need to, but he has easy domain. Oh my
Brainstorm.
God.
Just. No, I don't really need to
Oh,
look at the
come
rest of these cards.
on.
Let me just put that right down there.
This is where you say, I can't believe this is left in the pack. But of course, Sam has all of the fetch lands, so there's only 10 available. He has most of them. Brainstorm an Incredible Wheel. I was wrong. I want to say that I was wrong. I said he's going to play 1 blue card, and
Yeah, no.
he's going to play at least 2, maybe 3.
Thinking about Powdered Keg probably for the sideboard.
He's going to draft this Land War Wastes.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I know.
Yeah,
But he's pretending that he's thinking about Powder Keg.
yeah,
Like,
he's going to draft
why?
this
This
Land
seems
War
like a
Wastes.
perfectly reasonable sideboard card. Maybe I should land.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Huh? No,
Oh, I don't think he can resist. I don't think he can resist. Can he resist? Can he resist the
I have
allure?
both Bayous. I have Infinity Fetches.
Uh-oh. He
Look
did
at
it.
that
He
sideboard
did it.
card.
I appreciate that.
He can't keep.
The restraint,
Yep.
irrelevant for Sam as
Yeah.
he picks up this Cephala Coliseum.
So I think some of the things that we've seen from this draft, from this last pack, is I think that the Madness deck is not at the table. We saw one of the Wild Mongrels come around. We saw a last pick Careful Study. I think that both Mongrels being in the last pack probably means that we aren't going to see a Madness deck. Sam himself has the Arrogant Worm. Like, I think that's not there. And I think a last pick Goblin or Undead War Chief means that we don't have a Zombies drafter either, I don't think, because that card is got to be impossible to pass if you're deep in Zombies.
And they would have snapped up that Patriarch Spitting as the tribe that's able to get their creatures into the graveyard with the least effort.
Yeah.
So
it'll be interesting to see sort of how other people's decks have come together and how that is. So I think from his opponent, I can see a Wild Mongrel. I can see an Explosive Vegetation. So trying to do green from the person seeing across from him, but hard to imagine that they're too happy with their deck based on everything in Sam's.
our producer Michael has told us that Sam has said that he is sad there is no Gaia's Blessing in the cube.
As I spoke about actually earlier
Yes.
in the draft, the designer of the cube and Caleb Durward were paired first round.
Right.
Designer of the cube was on a control-ish Oath of Druids deck. The Caleb on a sort of a more traditional sort of blue-white control. Got a little bit aggressive in his oathing, and Millstone may have taken care of the rest.
Oh my gosh.
And by the end of that match, the designer has said, I've been convinced we should put a Guy's Blessing in the cube.
That's what it takes.
And so it's funny to see Sam just immediately pinpoint, like, that must be what he picked up to look at when he went to look for the to see what's in the things. Is there a Guy's Blessing?
Yeah.
And now he's bemoaning the fact.
Yes.
But little does he know, the designer has already incorporated that piece of feedback for the next iteration.
CubeCon next year, Sam. You'll have your Guy's Blessing.
It is awesome when drafters can do that. I for my own Devoid Cube, I had Chris Pikula draft it a couple of years ago, and just like in the middle of one of his matches, he's just sort of like looking at the board state, looking at his hand. He's like, the Devoid Cube needs a Meek Stone. Been in ever since. And just like immediately pinpointed like what is a fair power level of kind of a lock piece that's gonna let the longer term control decks kind of manage the board while still the other player can still kind of interact with it. Maybe they're moving equipment around, whatever. It's an awesome moment when drafters can sort of identify like, this piece is just missing
It's
from
like this
building it
exact
out.
card.
Yeah, not just like, oh, maybe if there's this kind of, like, where's Guy's Blessing? Like, let me go find it on the sheet. It should have been in here.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
That's,
I love that.
So
That sort of moment as a cube designer is really fantastic.
Isn't it funny that sometimes, like, you're just in a scenario where you've thought about adding a card and you're like, I don't know if this is good enough. Like, are there enough ways it comes up? And then you find yourself in that exact scenario and you're like, I need this card right now that I was considering. And after this game, this is the last game that will exist where this card's not in the cube. Now, and Jeff's the designer of the cube standpoint, he's gonna have to wait till after this weekend.
Yes, our lists are locked in for CubeCon. I think there will definitely be many people making changes afterwards. I think it's always great to get all the players' feedback on, what's going well, what's not, what's exciting, what cards didn't end up being fun. My own cube has been the subject of a good number of judge calls this weekend.
I bet.
There's a Chaos Orb in there, and we're a sanctioned event. We're playing it with the rules text. So definitely always exciting to see, like, are people enjoying that? Are people finding that fun? Or are people finding that a little bit scary?
I saw Thomas Cron practicing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The flipping. He had just lost.
Yep.
And he was just kind of sitting slightly dejected and just.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yep.
Great. Fantastic. We have a full weekend of Cube.
So much Cube.
For us, for you, this is Friday. This is draft 3. We have 3 more drafts tomorrow.
Yep.
After those 6 drafts, we're going to move to a top 64, which I feel pretty good. I think you're going to be there. I think
I'm going to play. I'm going to play some rounds tomorrow. I think if I don't completely 0-3 bomb out, I think there's a decent chance. I'm interested to see how the top 8 cube, not the top 8 draft, but the top 64 cubes are selected, and sort of the optionality for players in there.
I am also interested in that.
What I've heard from the organizers is it's going to be sort of stack ranked from the players in the top 64.
That is correct, yes. So the players will decide.
It's going to be a lot of games. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of gamesmanship. I think what we will see there is a lot of predictability. I think it'll be, we'll see, the more traditional legacy cubes, the more traditional peasant and pauper cubes, and probably not as much of, sadly, the void cube or the turbo cube or any of these cubes that have sort of really bizarre play experiences associated with them.
Come Sunday, it will be time to say, you know what, we're in the last stretch, and I need to put my money where my mouth is, and that's been with these cubes I'm familiar with.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that. We have 26 cubes here. We're going to have plenty of time for people to draft all of these awesome, incredible designs that are, I would say, non-traditional for what most people think of cube.
Yes,
but
very much so.
But as we go along, I think Sunday is where you're going to see a lot of the more traditional stuff, as exactly what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
So we are going to take a quick break.
Excellent.
Sam's putting his deck together. When we come back in just a few minutes, we are going to see Sam Black piloting his, what I believe is going to be a 5-color deck, and see how this mana and this beautiful amalgamation of value and nonsense can fit together in the hands of, I would say, an expert pilot.
Oh, for sure. As we saw in yesterday's grudge match, I think
I saw up close. Let me tell you, rooting for Team Wizards was absolutely crushed. Crushed. So to update, it was a 9-0.
Yeah.
Now, normally, they stop the fight at 5. But for coverage, we're like, let's see them all. 9-0s don't happen very often.
Rub some salt in the wound.
Usually people go home. Someone's like, I don't want to draft the 3rd round. Anyway, so we're going to see if Sam can continue his victory that he's been through today. I believe he is one of 4 undefeated players.
Oh, wow.
On the day.
Undefeated on the day. Good for him.
Yeah, undefeated in matches on the day. So we're going to see if Sam can continue that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a few minutes covering the last draft, round 1 of that draft, just a minute.